After our next speaker, which is Henry Yu. Henry is the president of the Hong Kong Association of Atlanta, very active branch of the Hong Kong Associations. He's the president of the National U.S. Hong Kong Business Association, so he works with Mark on that regard. He's the executive committee member of the Federation of Hong Kong Business Associations Worldwide, which is based in Hong Kong, and he's going to be talking about business cooperation, educational initiatives to promote inclusion and diversity in Atlanta. Henry, you ready?
Yep.
Great.
Thank you, Don. Well, certainly it's an honor to be sharing my thoughts and what has happened and transpired in Atlanta with both Fred and Anders. And I certainly agree with comments from the two gentlemen. I think silence is not an option for us, and we have to speak up and take bold actions. And I would like to also add, we should also brag about our AAPI accomplishment as well as achievement in our society. I think this is something that might, I guess, discussion is going to focus on education and creating awareness, but more importantly, working in partnership. I think this is a public-private partnership. You know, obviously the legal enforcement, the elected officials, including AAPI officials, need to work closely with all the community group leaders, Asian community group leaders, as well as mainstream community groups, as well as mainstream companies in creating awareness and taking actions. You know, just celebrating every May as the Heritage Month is not enough. I think this is an ongoing effort that needs to be addressed and take bold action as suggested by Anders. Now, what has happened in mid-March really is a awakening to the entire Atlanta and Georgia communities, and including government level as well as local companies. The killing of 8 innocent citizens, 6 of them are Asian American women. Since the event, there has been many interactive discussion among different groups involving the entire, Atlanta City as well as the state level. And certainly, I would like to share with you in terms of particularly some of the efforts that I've been involved. Certainly, which I think is great news, because in Atlanta, Georgia, some of the major companies have Asian Resources Group, like other companies from other cities, but they have been a lot more proactive in addressing this issue. And I can give you a few examples, I think, which is very important. This will be an ongoing effort, and I know there are many of the Asian Resources Group of major companies, including small, medium-sized companies, addressing the AAPI issues. But addressing it is not enough. So I've touched base with a few of the companies. For example, JP Morgan Chase, they have an Asian group called Aspire. And they actually have employed, I believe, at least nationally and in Atlanta, over 10% of the total employee are Asian American professionals. So they are also addressing this, and actually the message is that they need to work closely with mainstream as well as Asian American Resources Group and other resources group, as well as community groups from Asia. I've also talked to, I think one of the company is called AAPI, a CPA firm. Actually, the CEO, right after the mid-March event, put together an email advising all the Asian American and also all employees on the quote-unquote value differences, promoting awareness, but also making sure that some of the AAPI employees, are aware of the support from senior management. But more importantly, is because this is a segment of the business very important. I can share with you others, such as Home Depot, Coca-Cola, Delta, and you name it, and including even a law firm such as Smith, Gambriel, and Russell. So I think now we're getting the attention. And after all, I think from the discussion with all those Asian Resources employees, as well as some of this senior management team, they recognize this is a very important business segment of the business, AAPI. So right now, they are willing to really proactively address it and take action. So I think working closely with the major corporations, including small and medium-sized companies, about awareness of what Asians contribute to the society is very important, but also that helps in terms of funding, which is very important. Now, on the community groups, among Asian community groups in Georgia, actually there are many summits and webinars, whatever you call, is create awareness, and also more importantly to have a pool of resources available for the citizens in Georgia and certainly Atlanta to be conscious of and reach out to all those nonprofit organizations. And I can tell you that, for example, the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce, they both are taking a very proactive role in addressing AAPI issues because there's a huge, certainly in Gwinnett County, huge population of Asian businesses. As a matter of fact, they will be putting together, I think they just had a sort of a community outreach, safety and awareness for the AAPI business, which is very important. On the same issue, I think Carter Center, I know that this Saturday they have a race issue discussion, which include all the Asian groups in town, and certainly that is very, very thoughtful of the center. As well as groups such as the Asian American Advancing Justice Atlanta, very proactive in helping, particularly the underprivileged, under-resourced group of AAPI. After all, again, this is all stereotyping. I mean, all Asians are rich or making a lot of money, household income, I don't know, $85,000. But when you look at the economic inequality among the top Asian earners and the bottom Asian earners, you're looking at basically, I think top are making more than 10 times the bottom Asian earners. So this is a big, big disparity. So we have to change the narrative, more than just, we are not your model minority. We have also other issues typical, just like any Americans. We pay taxes, we collect Social Security taxes, we watch football games and basketball games. So we want to be equal participants. Now, with that, I also want to stress, I think the importance of each city working closely with other cities and states on a national level. And I'm glad to report, actually, after the event in mid-March, some of the local elected AAPI officials have already teamed up with, for example, in California, I believe Representative Judy Chu, as well as the New York Representative Grace Meng has already had several actually interactive discussion with our Atlanta, Georgia citizens, as well as actually visiting Georgia, I believe it was the last month. So all this has basically taken place since mid-March. And certainly, I think it's time to call for action, bold action. So my suggestion is really, I think Hong Kong Association in US can play a key role. After all, we are a connector and networking group that bring all parties together, right? After all, we have been promoting actually global trade, between Hong Kong, China, Asia, and the rest of the world. So why not? This is certainly Hong Kong. I'm willing to share. I'm sure that our Hong Kong Association group in US are also doing similar things. For example, in Atlanta, the Hong Kong Association of Atlanta, we have two signature events, one being the annual Spring Festival, Spring Reception held around January or February of each year, as well as the annual Dragon Boat Festival. And I've already talked to some of our board members that we will be aggressively addressing using those two events to promote, to increase press coverage, to include major corporations, Asian Resources Group, but more importantly, to promote, to convey to our citizens in Georgia that, Hong Kong could be your connector and conduit on the AAPI issues, whether it's cultural, business, or educational. I guess those are my comments, and I do welcome suggestions and questions from Don and our audience.
Well, great, Henry, thanks. And you said something, silence is not an option. And I in preparing for this event, I was looking at some things and I was reminded of Edmund Burke's quote, which basically is something like, for evil to succeed, all it takes is for good people to do nothing. And that seems to be kind of appropriate for this. And it sort of matches also what I hear a lot over the last year. Maybe it was before that, but I just started to realize it. Turning the term from being someone saying they're non-racist and people saying that's not enough. You have to be anti-racist. You actually have to do something. You can't just sit there and say, well, I'm not racist, and think that that's good enough. And so I guess my question then is, and maybe this is a little bit open for everybody, is that implies that people outside the community also have to be doing something, not just people in the community saying this is happening and we need to have better laws. And so that's obviously very important. Do you see that happening? Do you get response from that, from outside the community, when you're asking people to be actively anti-racist or to do something and not do nothing? Whether it's from government or from businesses or individuals or organizations?
I guess my comment is, all life matters. And certainly for, at least from talking to major companies, I think they are taking this very seriously, not just the AAPI segment of the business, or at least AAPI employees. It goes to all employees. So as a matter of fact, I think this is something that I will be actively involved with the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. We will have our first sort of roundtable discussion. These are some of the actionable items that we will hopefully implement, or at least make an effort to address and work on that. Is on a quarterly basis, all the Asian resources group of the major company will get together, and then to address hate crime, not just AAPI, but obviously the AAPI is important, as well as some of the Black communities and other minority groups.